Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you haven't seen me before. My name is Cooper of Cooper's Mobile Mechanics. I've just got a quick job that I want to show you that I've just come to have a look at that I think you might find interesting. I have. Hopefully some of you might come across it and this might be quite useful to you. So let's go and have a look. So we've got a Citroen DS4, it's a 16 plate. He's complaining of the heaters weren't working. So when you put them on full, they weren't doing anything at all. Now, I just want to show you what I found basically. So all the fuses were okay. There was no faults logged. So I took the glove box out and I've checked the wiring going to the resistor, which is the wiring is this green and yellow wire and brown wire. It goes down to the resistor down there. Now I was getting 12 volts going there, and I was also getting a good earth. So then I checked from the resistor up to the blower, which is these two wires here, and again I was getting a good 12 volts and I was getting a good earth. So I thought to myself, well, that tells me that the blower motor is faulty. Now when doing the wiring checks, I disconnected the plug, and then when I plugged it back in, it actually kicked into life. So now the heater blower is working absolutely fine. So there's a possibility that the blower itself is starting to seize up, and potentially me sort of unplugging it and plugging it back in has just sort of kicked it back into life for now. But there's also another bit that I want to show you as well that I've noticed while I'm here. If I disconnect this wiring connector here, you can see there where that yellow and green wire is going in, it is starting to melt the plug, which is quite common. I've seen it on Peugeots. They usually have similar connector to this, just sort of down this side, and I've seen them burn out. Now at the minute it's not affecting it because, like I said, we're getting the 12 volts and we're getting a good earth over there. So for now it's okay. However, I am going to sort this out while I'm here. See down there, hopefully it's starting to melt in there as well. Now what I'm going to do, which when I spoke to a Peugeot technician when I had this fault previously, he said to me what they do is just get rid of this connector. So just chop the wires and join the black onto the brown, and then join the two yellow and green wires together. So I'm going to do that now. Like I say, although it's working fine now, that is likely to get worse. So we might as well sort that while we're here. But yeah, I just thought it would be interesting just to show you in case you have a similar fault. If you've got a Citroen DS4, I imagine you probably have you'll probably get the same faults with a DS3, with a wide variety of different Citroens and also Peugeots as well. Funnily enough, actually, I've only just noticed when I start to take it apart that there's an extra wire here. So it looks like at some point someone's just bypassed this and put an extra wire in, but they've just kind of cut in halfway through the wire, twisted it together, and the contact, it's not got a good contact at all. You can sort of twist it around and move it. So I reckon, like I was saying, when I was doing the wiring checks and I plugged it back in, it kickstarted into life. It was actually probably me moving this loom around and it finally got a contact. I suspect them just twisting it together, it probably didn't have a good contact, which is why the blowers weren't working. So I'm going to get this off and I'm going to sort it properly, because I don't like twisting wires together personally. So yeah, I would say that probably is actually the fault. So that went well. Heaters are working now. Yeah, like I said, I reckon that sort of dodgy wiring that they just twisted together was the cause of the fault. The contact was rubbish. Yeah, you can move it around all over the place. I don't really understand why they did that, to be honest. Why would you not join the wires properly? Yeah, I hate twisting wires together. I don't like seeing it. It's not a good fix. So yeah,
like I say, that's a pretty common fault on those like Citroens, Peugeots. That I think they all suffer from it. So if you do get a Citroen or a Peugeot or anything like that where the heaters aren't working, just have a look at that plug connector, see if it's starting to melt. And if it is, and you want to tackle doing the wiring repair yourself, do it properly. Don't twist the wires together, please. Now then, it's Tuesday morning, and I'm just over to do a couple of jobs here. This one you might remember from a previous video where I did a service of the brake fluid change. I'm just here to do rear disc and pads on it. And then this is his son's car that he asked me to go out and have a listen to. He had a whirring noise coming from the front, so I'll just show you what I've found. Okay, so I've got it jacked up at the minute. I've got it in gear. That's in third at the minute. Hopefully you can hear it. If I run it up, you'll be able to hear the noise that he's talking about. Here, it's coming from this driver's side front wheel bearing. So we have come with a new wheel bearing for that driver's side front. But what I also found while I was here, something a little bit extra as well. The passenger side front brake caliper is sticking. So on this driver's side front, you can spin the wheel nice and freely. But if you move over to the passenger side front, it's quite well locked up. It's not fully locked up, but it is locked up. You can't spin it as nicely. So I've come with a new wheel bearing for that driver's side front and a new caliper for the passenger side front. So in order to replace this wheel bearing, you need to get the caliper off and the caliper carrier, get the brake disc off. I'll undo that central drive shaft bolt and then come back here, get these 3 nuts off for the lower ball joint, and then I can slip the drive shaft out the way, which will give me room to get to, there's 3 bolts holding the wheel bearing on, so I can get those out and then knock the bearing off this way. So with the old bearing out, I'm going to get a wire brush on the drill, and I'm going to clean out all in here so it's nice and smooth, ready to get the new bearing in. I've got my new wheel bearing kit here, which comes with all new bolts as well. So like I say, once that's all cleaned up, I'll get that in and reassemble it. Okay, so I was just putting all this together. However, brake pads, the old brake pads I've taken out, you see there they've got plenty of life on them, but they're in a real bad way. The sort of backing plate of the pad, so it should sort of wrap around there. It's just sort of rusted, corroded off, so that's flopping around. And then also the little spring clip that's usually riveted onto the pad there. That's just, again, it's just corroded off and it's come off, so we can't really reuse those. So I've got some new brake pads that I'm going to fit on now, so it'll be much better. So I've got the new caliper on the passenger side along with the new brake pads. I'm just bleeding it through now, so I'm just going to do the same procedure from the last video with the Audi A1. If you haven't seen that, go back and have a look. I'm basically just going to bleed it through, and then I'll take the pressure bleeder off, pump the pedal a few times, and then I'll bleed it again. That's just my routine of doing it. The only difference with this one, obviously with it being a front caliper, is I don't have to mess around with the handbrake cable, so I can just put it on, bleed it, and then I'll take for a road test and make sure that whirring noise has gone from the wheel bearing. I'm just out driving this Golf now after doing the bearing. It's feeling much better, sounded much better I should say. Before I had a really bad whirring noise while you're driving, and yeah, that's now gone, and the brakes are no longer sticking as well, so that's all sorted. We'll crack on with the Passat rear disc and pads now. So the first thing I want to do then is get this electronic parking brake back. So if I go onto here, hopefully you can see it, see the screen okay. It's quite sunny today, so it's getting quite a bit of a reflection on the screen. How far are they going to go on to? This is a 3C Passat. Right, now these are quite funny. It's like a 50-50 chance with these. Sometimes you go into brakes and it'll be fine. sometimes I go in there and say function not supported, and you'll then have to go into parking brake. But I guarantee if I go into parking brake first, so that try and do it, it will tell me to go into the brakes. So we'll take a guess. Which one should we go for? Let's try the parking brake. So I want to replace the brake pads. So if I go onto there, just wait for it to load. And that's what I'm in there. Function not supported. So I'll go back. I'll go into brakes. Try it that way. It should work. There you go. So press OK to continue. So we've got to make sure handbrake's released. Okay, there it is. So now you can see there the brakes are fully open. So it just tells you there, basically when you've finished your brake, replacing your brakes, you must end the brake pad change there. Go on number 2, and that will push the parking brake actuators back forward again. So now we should be able to wind back the piston on that caliper and replace the brakes. Now I've got the piston wind back tool on there. There you go. Can do that one-handed, look. Push it all the way back. Once I get that piston all the way back, I can replace the disc and pads. I'm going to have to set the brake carrier off. That is probably the only slightly tricky part of this, I guess, is just getting to it. Can be a bit fiddly, sort of coming through the back, and they can be quite tight, but yeah, it should be nice and straightforward. That one's all done. I was going to show you just the end with me putting the piston back using the computer, but the customer came out just to sort of see how I was getting on, and then we just had a bit of a chat as I was finishing up. So, but it was all pretty straightforward. Just took for a drive after, and yeah, that's all done. So I'm heading over to my next job now, which is a set of rear drums, shoes, and wheel cylinders on an old 2006, I think it is, a Volkswagen Polo. So I might film it, but I'm sort of behind schedule a little bit, just because I had to nip out and go and get those brake pads on that Golf. Sort of put me behind schedule a little bit. So yeah, I may or may not film that. I'm not sure. I'll see how we get on. So here we are back with the transporter for the clutch master cylinder, the one that I showed you on the last video. I've now I've got the special tool, so that will basically squeeze onto the 2 tabs that hold the master cylinder in place in the pedal, and then it should just pop out nicely. And we'll see. God, I wish I had that tool earlier. That made it so much easier. Right, new master cylinder going in. So I think we'll put it in, and if you've got to bolt it in first and then sort of push the pedal into here to lock it in place, maybe, rather than clipping it in first and then trying to bolt in. But yeah, we'll see. And then once that's in, so you can see there, so that's where the clutch pipe goes into, that you can see in the engine bay, and then the one from the reservoir goes in there. Once that's all in, we can then bleed it all up. One thing I do want to make you aware of, if ever you're doing this job, so on the clutch pipe at the top there's a little black seal. Now sometimes when you take this pipe off, that seal stays in the old master cylinder. This one stayed on the pipe, which is good, but I have been caught up before where that stayed in the old master cylinder. I've put the new one on, put the pipe on, tried to bleed it up, and it's been leaking out of this pipe. It's happened to me. I think it's pretty much happened to everyone I've spoken to. So yeah, just make sure the seal either stays on the pipe, or if it does stay on the old master cylinder, check it and take that seal out of the old master cylinder, put it back on here before putting the new one on. Now that that's all bolted in, I've got the pressure bleeder on the reservoir there, and I'm just bleeding it from underneath. And what I'll do, similar to the brakes, I'll bleed it for a little while, and then I'll pump the pedal. I'll take the pressure off the bleeder, pump the pedal a few times, bleed it again, and I might repeat that process 2 or 3 times, and then we'll see if we get a good pedal and if we can
get it into gear.
So that went well. Bled it all through, took through a drive, and yeah, it's all sound. Like I said on the last video, I hadn't actually diagnosed that myself. The customer got in touch for me to replace the master cylinder, because I think he spoke to someone about getting the clutch and slave cylinder replaced, because the pedal was dropping to the floor basically. But the people he contacted, they said find someone to come and do the master cylinder first, because they said when they do the clutch and the slave, they said they'll just do the master cylinder anyway while it's there. So he said get the master done first and see if that sorts it. And so far, yeah, it seems pretty good. So hopefully it stays that way. I'm ahead of schedule actually today, so I'm just going to stop for some lunch. And I'm just going to use this time to price up some jobs, get back in touch with, got a few missed calls, got some jobs to price up, some invoices to send, so I'll just do that now while I have some lunch and then head on to the next one, which is just an anti-roll bar drop link and track wide end on a Seat Ibiza, and then that'll be me done for the day. So it's now Friday morning, just got the first job of the day, just to replace this coolant flange here. So down there you can see all that pink crusty antifreeze where it's been leaking. This is a car that I serviced a couple of months ago. Noticed the coolant level was low, and I spotted that while I was carrying out the inspection, so it should be nice and straightforward. I'm just going to jack it up, drain all the coolant out of it, and then it's just a case of getting these two pipes off here. There's just a couple of bolts that hold it on, and swap it over.
And that's the old flange out. So see here where it's all been leaking, that seal around there, I bet if I take that out that'll probably be really hard and brittle. Then down in there I have cleaned it up about as best as we're going to get it, to be fair. It looks a little bit pitted around there because the car's like 18 years old, but when you run your finger around it, it does feel nice and smooth. So we should be good to put the new flange on. The new part does come with a new seal, so we shouldn't need any sealant. The only thing, what I might do, I might put a little bit of sealant on here just to hold this seal in place, because it's, when you put it in, it's kind of trying to spring back out again just because of the shape of it. So yeah, I'm probably just going to put a very thin layer of sealant inside, then put the seal on just to keep the seal in place, so that when I try and put it in, the seal is not going to fall out. But other than that, we shouldn't need any sealant to go between here and the head. So that's what I mean by a very thin bit of sealant. It's purely just to hold that seal in place. We're not gumming in a lot of sealant. It doesn't need it at all. So yeah, just a very thin smear on the inside and then the seal on top. And then now you can put that back in and not worry about the seal falling out while you're trying to, because you're going underneath here, you can't quite see what you're doing. It'll be very easy for that seal to fall off without you realising. Bolt it all back together, and then the coolant will just be pouring out of there. So yeah, so that all went smoothly. The coolant flange is all in. Filled the coolant, bled it. Just, yeah, nice and straightforward. All I've got to do now is go and collect all my parts ready for next week. It's normally what I do on a Friday, just get them all ready. And then I've just got to go meet a lady down in Stratford with, she's got a Polo, well, it's her friend's Polo. The car hasn't moved for about 6 months, and the car won't start. But from the way she described it, she just said it's not doing anything when she turns the key. So I suspect the battery has just gone completely flat. I'm going to go down there with the battery, check it out first, just make sure it is the battery. If it's not, we'll carry out diagnosis and see what it is. But hopefully it's just a straightforward battery swap. And then I've just got 2 rear shock absorbers on a Volkswagen Passat to finish off the day. So yeah, nice, pretty simple, straightforward day really, which is nice. Okay, so here we are on the last job of the day. So here to replace these 2 rear shock absorbers on this Volkswagen Passat. It failed the MOT. You can see there they're leaking down the length. Same as the driver's side, leaking on the full length of the shock absorber, so they've failed. So all we need to do really, I'm just going to put a jack under the lower arm to support it, take this nut and bolt out here,
And then just behind here, I'll just take a couple of these screws out, get the wheelhouse liner, sort of put it out of the way. And there's just 2 bolts up here, so quite nice and simple really. You can see how bad it is, look. There's just no dampening effects at all really, so yeah. Just got to get this cap off here. There's a 16mm nut holds it on, and then we'll just swap this sort of top mount off. It comes with this. Swap the shock over, and then get it all back together and do the same on the other side. Now, some of you might have watched that and thought, oh, you shouldn't use grips on here to hold it. Well, yes and no. See, if you put grips directly onto here, and as you tighten it, this spins, you're going to put score marks on here, which can damage it. You are right. But it's not very tight going onto here. So if you get a rag like that, and then put them on there, you're gripping it, but these sharp teeth on there, they're not going to be cutting into it. So you're still going to get that grip, which means you can get the nut on. It's perfectly safe. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, if you are going to do it that way, just put a rag over it just to stop it from damaging anything. Right, so that's me done for the week then, because that went well. This week's been a nice straightforward week, to be fair. Everything's gone well. I was just going to finish off the day. I've had a couple more phone calls to get some quotes and prices for jobs, so I was going to go and do that now. But I've just turned up to GSF and they've had a power cut, so I might have to phone them up tomorrow to get some prices. Yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found something interesting, or if you've learned something, that's great. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share it around as well. Let all your friends and family know. Yeah, thank you for watching.